Well, hello there. In my first two Marian videos, we discussed the rationale of the Church's teachings on Mary being the Mother of God and being immaculately conceived. Well, in this video, we'll discuss the dogma that Mary was assumed into heaven. The assumption of Mary simply means that her body and soul were taken up or assumed into heaven so that her body never decayed. So basically, she was never put into a casket and placed into the ground. It's basically as simple as that. Now, where some get confused is that they incorrectly infer then that Mary did this on her own. I'd say similar to how Enoch and Elijah were taken up into heaven or assumed, so was Mary. They were assumed not by their own power, but by God's. And the same's with Mary. She was assumed not by her own power, but 100% due to the power and grace of God. And in 1950, Pope Pius XII declared Mary's assumption into heaven to be a doctrine that Catholics must be faithful to. Now, most people lose their minds over this teaching because they contend that it can't be true because there is no explicit mention of Mary being assumed into heaven in the Bible. And yet, we believe things that aren't explicitly stated in Scripture. For instance, if we just use Scripture, we would have no idea how the apostles died. We rely on historical documents other than the Bible to know this. Also, there is no divinely inspired table of contents stated in the Bible. God didn't tell us what books should be in the New Testament. So as a result, using just the Bible, we would have no idea what books should be included, and yet no one disputes that there should be more or less than the 27 books in the New Testament. There is also nothing in the Bible that states that divine revelation ended when the Apostle John died. Yet, we all believe that is the case. Well, the same is true with the assumption of Mary. Sure, there is no explicit verse in the Bible that details Mary's assumption, but so what? The authoritative church has infallibly declared it to be true. And then there are historical facts that at the very minimum, I gotta admit, make you wonder. We have some level of record of how each apostle died and where their remains are kept. It was a big deal at the time to have the remains of an apostle, almost like bragging rights. And yet, we have no record of how Mary died and where are her remains. Wouldn't it be an even bigger deal, bigger bragging rights then, to have the remains of Jesus' mother? Why are there no remains of Mary? The assumption of Mary would explain why Mary's remains have never been spoken for. And having relics of a saint is also a big deal in the Catholic Church. A relic can be a bone, piece of hair, etc. And there are relics of Saints Peter, Thomas, Matthew, and the other apostles, but again, none from Mary. Well, why is that? Why are there no relics of Mary? Again, Mary's assumption into heaven would explain this mystery. I'm not saying these are proof points, but it does make you think, because it makes no sense at all, really, that some church in some city wouldn't shout for all to hear that they have the remains of Mary and her relics. But that has never happened. You got to admit, it makes you think. The bottom line for me is, do you believe the authority of Jesus' one true church that says Mary assumed into heaven, or someone else's or your own version of truth? Almost every doctrine comes down to that question. Who did Jesus give authority to? You or his church? I hope you found this video even a tiny bit helpful in the rationale behind the dogma of Mary's assumption into heaven. The next and last Marian dogma video we'll discuss will be Mary's perpetual virginity. So until next time, may God bless you on your faith journey, and may God bless the church, Jesus' church, the Catholic Church.